The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pristine grass courts of the Riverside Country Club. It was one of those perfect spring days when the wealthy members gathered to watch tennis, sip champagne, and remind themselves of their place in the world's carefully ordered hierarchy. From the elegant clubhouse balcony, dozens of well-dressed spectators looked down upon the courts with the casual interest of people for whom entertainment was always readily available. Men in tailored suits checked their expensive watches, while women in designer dresses laughed at conversations that carried the easy confidence of inherited privilege. On the court below, Catherine Sterling stood poised and elegant in her crisp white tennis dress, her blonde hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail. At 34, she commanded her family's business empire with the same precision she brought to her tennis game. Sharp, calculating, and utterly confident in her superiority. Catherine was known throughout the club not just for her wealth, but for her cutting tongue and her habit of treating the staff as entertainment for her amusement. Today was no exception. Standing nearby was Marcus Thompson, the club's head groundskeeper, holding a worn broom and wearing the simple blue work clothes that marked him as part of the invisible workforce that kept the club running smoothly. At 38, Marcus carried himself with quiet dignity, despite the calluses on his hands and the weariness that came from working multiple jobs to support his family. Beside him sat his 7-year-old daughter, Emma, clutching her beloved teddy bear and wearing a simple light blue dress that had been carefully mended in several places. Emma had beautiful dark hair in neat pigtails and eyes that held both innocence and a wisdom beyond her years. The kind of wisdom that comes to children who learn early that the world doesn't always treat people fairly. Marcus worked extra shifts on weekends, bringing Emma with him because childcare was a luxury he couldn't afford. She would sit quietly on the sidelines, content with her teddy bear and a coloring book, never complaining about the long hours or the way some members looked right through her as if she didn't exist. Catherine had just finished a match against another member, a perfunctory victory that barely raised her heart rate. As she toweled off, her gaze fell on Marcus, who was quietly raking the clay on the adjacent court. "You there," she called out, her voice carrying across the court with the authority of someone accustomed to immediate obedience. Marcus looked up, setting down his rake. "Yes, ma'am?" "I need someone to give me a real game," Catherine announced, loud enough for the balcony spectators to hear. "These club members are far too easy. How about you?" A murmur of interest rippled through the crowd above. This was the kind of spectacle they lived for, a chance to watch someone from their world toy with someone from another. Marcus glanced down at Emma, who was watching the exchange with quiet concern. "I appreciate the offer, ma'am, but I'm working. And I don't have proper tennis clothes." "Nonsense," Catherine laughed, her voice taking on a theatrical quality. "I insist. After all, how hard could it be? You spend all day around tennis courts. Surely you've picked up something." She paused dramatically, then raised her voice so the entire balcony could hear. "I'll tell you what. If you can beat me, if a janitor can actually defeat a ranked player, I'll marry you." "Right here, right now!" The crowd erupted in delighted laughter. Catherine basked in their amusement, clearly enjoying her performance. It was the kind of joke that reinforced all their assumptions about class, ability, and the natural order of things. Emma tugged gently on her father's work shirt. "Daddy," she whispered, "you don't have to play if you don't want to." Marcus knelt down to his daughter's level, his voice soft and reassuring. "It's okay, sweetheart. Sometimes we have to show people that everyone deserves respect even if they don't think so." He stood and faced Catherine. "All right, ma'am. I'll play your game." The crowd settled into their seats with the eager anticipation of Romans watching gladiators. This would be amusing. A brief entertainment before the real matches resumed. What none of them knew, what Catherine's arrogance had blinded her to, was that Marcus Thompson had once been ranked among the top junior players in the country. 15 years earlier, he'd been on track for a professional career when his world changed overnight. His wife Sarah had been diagnosed with cancer during her pregnancy with Emma. Marcus had walked away from tennis, without a second thought, using his modest sponsorship savings to pay for treatments and spending every moment he could by Sarah's bedside. After Sarah passed away when Emma was 3, Marcus had rebuilt their life from nothing. He worked as a groundskeeper not because he lacked talent, but because it was honest work that allowed him to be present for his daughter. The calluses on his hands came from rakes and lawnmowers, but his muscle memory still held the precision of thousands of hours on practice courts. As Marcus walked to the baseline, Catherine called out to the crowd, "Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to witness the shortest tennis match in club history." The laughter from the balcony was generous and cruel. These were people who had never doubted their place in the world, never questioned whether their advantages were earned or inherited. Catherine served first. A hard, aggressive serve designed to end the point immediately. It was the kind of serve that intimidated most club members, causing them to swing wildly or duck away entirely. Marcus stepped into the return with fluid precision, his body remembering movements it had practiced 10,000 times. The ball left his racket with a sound like a gunshot, screaming down the line for a clean winner. The laughter from the balcony died abruptly. Catherine's confident smile flickered. "Lucky shot!" she called out, but there was a new tension in her voice. Marcus said nothing, simply walking to the other side of the court with the calm focus of someone who had found his element again. The second serve came in, another aggressive attempt to overpower. Marcus moved with the grace of a dancer, his footwork perfect as he stepped around his backhand and unleashed a forehand that sent the ball rocketing cross-court, just catching the corner of the service box. The crowd had gone completely silent. From the balcony, men in expensive suits leaned forward with sudden interest. Women who had been gossiping moments before now watched with growing fascination. Emma sat on the sideline, her teddy bear clutched tightly, watching her father transform before her eyes. She had never seen him play tennis before, but something in his movements told her this was who he truly was. Not just a groundskeeper, but someone extraordinary. As the match progressed, Catherine's confidence crumbled like sand. Every serve she hit came back harder. Every strategy she employed was countered with effortless precision. Marcus moved around the court as if he had been born there, his shots finding angles she didn't know existed. By the third game, sweat was beading on Catherine's forehead despite the cool afternoon air. Her designer tennis outfit, perfect at the start, now clung uncomfortably to her skin. Meanwhile, Marcus played in his work clothes with the calm focus of someone completely in his element. "Time out!" Catherine called, walking to the net. Who are you?" Marcus paused, racket in hand. "I'm exactly who you thought I was, ma'am. A single father working to provide for his daughter. But you play like someone who used to dream of playing professionally. Someone who gave up that dream for something more important?" Marcus glanced toward Emma, who was watching with wide eyes. "Sometimes we make choices that change our path, but they don't change who we are inside." Catherine looked up at the balcony where the crowd was watching with expressions she'd never seen before. Not amusement or superiority, but something approaching respect. For the man in work clothes who was teaching them all a lesson about assumptions. The match resumed, but the outcome was inevitable. Marcus's shots grew more confident, more precise, while Catherine's game fell apart under the weight of her own humiliation. When he hit the final winner, a delicate drop shot that barely cleared the net before dying on her side of the court. The silence from the balcony was deafening. Marcus walked to the net, extending his hand in the traditional gesture of sportsmanship. Catherine stared at it for a long moment, her face cycling through emotions. Embarrassment, anger, and finally, something that might have been respect. I don't understand," she said quietly. "If you can play like this, why am I working as a groundskeeper?" Marcus finished gently. "Because this is honest work that lets me be present for what matters most." He nodded toward Emma, who was beaming with pride despite not fully understanding what she'd witnessed. Marcus turned to address the crowd on the balcony, his voice carrying clearly in the still air. "I want to thank you all for watching, and I want you to know that I have no intention of holding Mrs. Sterling to her promise. Marriage should be based on love and respect, not on the outcome of a tennis match. He paused, looking up at faces that suddenly seemed less certain of themselves. But I hope today has reminded all of us that we never really know who we're talking to. The person serving your coffee might have been a teacher. The woman cleaning your office might have been a nurse. The man taking care of your grounds might have dreams and talents you never bothered to discover. As Marcus gathered his equipment and took Emma's hand, the crowd remained silent. Some looked thoughtful. Others appeared uncomfortable, as if seeing themselves clearly for the first time. Catherine stood alone on the court, her racket hanging limply at her side. For 34 years, she had measured people by their clothes, their bank accounts, their perceived status in society. Today, a man in work clothes had shown her something she'd never learned in all her years of privilege, that true worth has nothing to do with what we own, and everything to do with who we choose to be. As father and daughter walked away from the court, Emma looked up at Marcus with adoring eyes. "Daddy, you're really good at tennis." Marcus smiled, squeezing her small hand. "Thank you, sweetheart, but you know what I'm even better at?" "What?" "Being your dad." The sun was beginning to set behind the clubhouse, casting golden light across the courts where assumptions had been shattered and lessons had been learned. And somewhere in that light, a little girl with a teddy bear had discovered that her father was not just a hero to her, but a teacher to everyone willing to learn that respect should never be based on appearances, and that champions come in all forms, wearing all kinds of clothes.